Are you ready, kids?
Aye, aye, Captain!
I can't hear you!
Wait, nope. I know how Viacom is. I'm not taking that risk. Also, before I start this video is kind of long, obviously, but I show something really cool at the end, so if you don't want to watch a whole video, at least skip to that. I'll put the time code right here. So yeah, watch that. It's cool, I promise. Licensed games very understandably have a pretty bad rep, because they usually rely on the license to sell copies rather than, you know, being good. But there is a few standout ones, like GoldenEye 007 on the N64, or the Disney Capcom games on the NES. However, people in my generation like to point to this game, SpongeBob SquarePants Battle Bikini Bottom, developed by Heavy Iron. It's available on the GameCube, PS2, and Xbox, and I have the GameCube version. Yeah, I'm one of them. I absolutely love this game. I played it as a kid when it was new, and I poured countless hours into this one, and granted, that could possibly be because SpongeBob at the time was my absolute favorite thing ever, but this one still stands out while even comparing it to other SpongeBob games. Anyway, let's get into it. The game begins with Plankton building a machine that'll mass-produce robots who are designed to help steal the Krabby Patty's secret formula. Almost immediately, he realizes he left the machine on the "Don't Obey" option, so he's kicked out by his own creations. All the while, the robots reproduce endlessly. Meanwhile, SpongeBob and Patrick are playing robots and racehorses, which makes SpongeBob wish they had real robots to play with, which leads to Patrick suggesting to use his magic conch shell with the belief that their wish will be granted the next day. SpongeBob wakes up the next morning seeing the destruction and vandalism the robots have caused. Thinking this was all his fault, he decides to save both Bikini Bottom and Plankton's forks himself. I actually like this plot a lot. SpongeBob and Patrick playing some stupid, nonsensical game and Plankton building his machines in such an illogical way made complete sense with the characters, unlike how Revenge of the Flying Dutchman made SpongeBob even dumber for the sake of the plot. It's overall a pretty dumb plot, but I mean that in the best way possible. The SpongeBob series as a whole is already kinda dumb, so this is exactly the kind of story that should be in a SpongeBob game. The gameplay, much like almost every game I've ever reviewed, is a collectathon 3D platformer. This time the level design is actually pretty close to Spyro, as in most levels are relatively linear, with a bunch of extra stuff off to the side, and plenty of things to collect and missions to complete. Those missions can be anything like defeat a boss, destroy all the tikis while getting the ultimate wedgie experience, complete a time challenge, or even just completing a platform challenge. Fulfilling these objectives will grant you a golden spatula, the main collectible of this game. There's a grand total of 100 of them, and you're going to need 75 of them. Most are pretty painless to get, others are a bit more problematic. I'll get into those later. A not so problematic one, and even one of my favorites, is when Squidward sarcastically tells you to jump around like an idiot, and if you jump around enough, he gives you a golden spatula just to get you to stop. And that's kind of genius. Some other objects you collect in this game are shiny objects. That's actually what they're called. I love that name because it summarizes every other game's common collectible into 2 words. Anyway, they're pretty much this game's currency. There's not a set limit of them in each level, unlike Spyro. You get them from destroying robots or tikis. There are some that are just laying around on the ground and do go away forever once you collect them, so I guess they actually do work exactly like the gems from Spyro: A Hero's Tale. You can also earn shiny objects by breaking multiple things within a short period of time, so creating a combo. What I really like about these is each combo level actually has a name, so instead of combo times 6 or something, you have Super Ultra Mega Monster Combo! It's a tiny bit of extra effort and I love it. So you can use these shiny objects for multiple things, mostly progressing a level. You'll find a lot of these clams, functionally they work like money bags from Spyro. Can you tell I just finished a Spyro marathon? Whenever you pay one of these clams, a new pathway to open, whether it be a bridge that
Alright, out of the sky!
or just spawning a trampoline. And then we have Mr. Krabs. You can buy golden spatulas from him and they are expensive. To get all 8 of his golden spatulas, you're going to have to spend 39,500 shiny objects. I only had 10,000 by the end of the game, and that was after 10 minutes of grinding, which I thought that would be enough. Apparently it wasn't. In other words, if you want 100% this game, you're gonna have to do some grinding. I guess it's fitting to Mr. Krabs' character and you could beat this game just fine without ever paying him, but I like 100%ing games and doing everything in video games should be fun. At the very least, there is a cheat code that gives you 1,000 shiny objects each time you do it. though my hand was really cramping by the 70th time I did it because, oh yeah, you have to pay 40,000 shiny objects a second time. More on that later. Anyway, I don't normally use cheat codes in video games, but in this case, if all it does is cut out a bunch of grinding, I'll use it. And I only ever use this cheat code at the very end of the game, so whatever. Another collectible would be Patrick's socks. Every 10 of them, you can trade them in for 1 golden spatula. So basically the blue coins for Mario Sunshine. Okay, I know I probably triggered someone's blue coin PTSD, but let me just say this. Patrick's socks are blue coins done right. The problem with the blue coins were the execution, not the idea. There was 240 blue coins in Sunshine, 30 in each level, and 20 in Delfino Plaza. Many of them were really cryptic. Like, you're just supposed to know to spray this wall. Basically, there were too many of them and you needed a guide to find them all. Patrick's socks aren't like that at all. There are only 80 of them and I thought only one of them was cryptic. The one you get from hitting the fountain, though that is the only one I can think of. That's not to say they're perfect though, I do have my issues. I think some of them take a little too much effort to get. Like you need to destroy all 8 snowmen on Sand Mountain, so I guess they're sandmen? Anyway, this one's an absolute pain because there's multiple routes meaning you're going to go down the same slide several times without dying too because all the sandmen respawn if you do. This is actually one of the more frustrating moments in the game and I hate it. And all you get is 1/10 of a golden spatula. There's a less egregious example in the Murmur Lair. You spend 2,300 shiny objects to unlock a quick platforming section to get a sock. I don't mind the platforming, but why do I have to spend so much on a sock? Other than that, nothing else comes to mind, and I think the socks as a whole were handled pretty well. A much more rare collectible would be the golden underwear. Underwear represents your health in this game. If you find golden underwear, it upgrades your health by 1. There's 3 of them in the whole game and you start off with 3 hit points, so assuming you get everything, you should have 6 hit points by the end of the game. SpongeBob's controls are actually really good, as in this is one of the better controlling 3D platformers I've played. The controls just feel super tight, allowing for some seemingly tough platforming to be done with ease. He also has a few moves. Aside from the obvious jump and double jump, he can also attack with his bubble wand. He actually has a lot of bubble based abilities. You can do this high jump attack. It can't really be used for platforming, you just go straight up and down, but it's great in certain situations. You can also do this ground pound type thing, which is also good in certain circumstances. The really interesting abilities are the ones you unlock after completing the first 2 boss fights and unlocking the 2 chunks of the hub world. The first is the Bubble Bowl. It allows you to throw a bowling ball whenever, and it's great for destroying enemies from afar, but I really hate using it when the game expects me to be precise. Like these ramps in the Murmur Lair, and especially these buttons in the same level. I'm hitting it, why isn't it working? The second and final unlockable ability is a Bubble Missile. You press the button and SpongeBob fires a missile. It's great for destroying more annoying robots from a distance, assuming you're standing in a safe spot or at least can do the dirty deed fast enough. And of course there's the occasional puzzle the game throws at you, and I just love this because it's fun to use. You get this first person view and I don't know, I just find it a lot of fun to use. SpongeBob can also turn into this sponge ball and it's not used much. SpongeBob can also wall jump, but it's almost never used until one of the final levels, where it basically becomes the main mechanic of that level. They use it in a lot of interesting and surprisingly challenging ways too. All 3 characters can also slide down certain slopes, and this is actually a lot of fun and controls great. I love how each of them have different animations. SpongeBob just slides on his tongue, which is a really good reference to the episode pre-hibernation week.
Life's as extreme as you wanna make it!
Oh yeah, all 3 characters. SpongeBob actually isn't the only character in this game, as each level has an extra character, being Patrick or Sandy. Patrick is the first character you'll come across in Jellyfish Fields. He's mostly good for picking up large objects like watermelons or even enemies and throwing them. It makes for a good attack and the occasional puzzle. You also use it on these planks of wood that toss you far away when you throw something at it while standing on it. Probably the coolest part of this ability is the Freezy Fruit. You throw it at any body of water, or I guess goo, and it freezes, allowing you to run on it for a short while. It's not used often, but it's a cool idea nonetheless. And then there's Sandy. Why is she here? They never explain why she's helping SpongeBob and Patrick. Heck, she doesn't even have an introduction of any kind. Anyway, she can use her lasso for a number of things like attacking robots, swinging from dumb old Texas icons, and even using it to hover across large distances, making her easily the best character to play as. Platforming is the easiest with her by far for obvious reasons, and I think there's a lot of cool level design with her. Something I really appreciate about this game is that you can immediately warp to not just any level, but any golden spatula. Oh, you need to backtrack to get a golden spatula you couldn't get in your first go? No problem, just select it from the menu and you'll be taken there immediately. This cuts away so much needless backtracking and is something more games needed to have. Yeah, games like Spyro allow you to warp to whatever level, but not specific parts of the level. Admittedly, those levels are kind of small, so like whatever, but still. The gameplay is overall really solid, though if you've played games like Mario, Spyro, or even Banjo, this all sounds pretty familiar. Battle Bikini Bottom doesn't do anything particularly new, but I don't think it has to. It's a SpongeBob game. The most we can ask for is good gameplay, and yeah, we got that. It may not be entirely original, but what it does do, it does really well. One thing I really like about this game are the robots. They're genuinely really creative, like there's the Hammer, a robot with the hammer. It's a dumb joke, but I kinda love those. There's the Tartar, a robot that sprays you with tartar sauce. You know, the sauce people put on fish before they eat them. Another one of my favorite early robots would be the G-Love, a spinning disc robot that has the sole purpose of slapping you. I loved it. Notice how I said early robot? Well, the later ones actually get a lot more creative, like the Sleepy Time, a robot that gets woken up really easily if you do anything remotely loud within its light, so you have to tiptoe, complete with a xylophone, in order to destroy it without waking up. Probably my favorite would be the Tubulet. They're a stack of 3 robots, and the bottom one twirls around whilst shooting out fire. So you have to destroy the bottom one and use your high jump attack to destroy the other 2 before the first one comes back in a fiery explosion. Aside from just being a cool idea for an enemy, I mostly just like this one because the fire actually changes color if you're playing on certain holidays. It's a neat touch. Another thing I really like about these enemies is their introduction cutscenes. They show you what they're all about in a short and entertaining cutscene. I just think these are a really smart way to tell the players what the enemies do and how to destroy them. It's so much better than a boring tutorial. The only problem I have with these is that you can do the levels in whatever order you want, assuming you have enough golden spatulas, and these introduction cutscenes only happen within the levels the enemies first appear in. So if you went to SpongeBob's Dream before you went to the Flying Dutchman's Graveyard, you'll come across these slicks, but you won't know how to deal with them because the game expected you to first fight these guys in their debut level. It's not really a big deal, you could probably figure out how to fight these games anyway, but I still thought it was worth bringing up. One last thing about these robots, if you go to the police station you get a detailed explanation on these robots, with getting a pretty good look at them, pretty much like the trophy rooms in the Super Smash Bros. Games. One of my complaints with Revenge of the Flying Dutchman was the levels, for the most part, didn't do a great job representing the show. That's definitely not the case here. Each level is pretty much how they appear in the show. I would like to highlight Downtown Bikini Bottom in particular. It actually looks like Downtown Bikini Bottom. Jellyfish Fields feels way closer to the show because it's actually a field now. There's no giant rocks surrounding the level. And I think this more open approach helps make this game's world feel much closer to that of SpongeBob's. This applies to pretty much every returning level, Downtown Bikini Bottom, Goo Lagoon, the Hub World, and even the Flying Dutchman's Graveyard, a place that doesn't even exist within the show, but this iteration just feels closer to something you would actually see in the show. The other levels are pretty great too, the Marmalair, Sand Mountain, Rock Bottom, and my personal favorite, SpongeBob's Dream. It's based on that one SpongeBob episode, Sleepy Time, and it works pretty much exactly the same. You start off in SpongeBob's Dream, but you can explore Sandy's, Patrick's, Mr. Krabs, and Squidward's dreams. I love Patrick's dream, it's just a black void and all you do is talk to him and get a golden spatula. If you decide to walk away into the void, you just end up back at Patrick. I'm sure some people prefer an actual level, but I don't know, I like this joke too much. Sandy's dream is pretty cool too. It's this weird explosion of Texas. There's floating Alamos, cow skulls, oil wells, poop, and cows that throw literal cow pies. The thing you're sliding on is even Texas. Squidward's dream is probably the best one. It's this shockingly hard platforming section where you're jumping on musical notes trying to get to the giant floating Squidward head, while you're surrounded by Squidward's many self-portraits. Mr. Krabs' dream is the only one I dislike. It's just an enemy gauntlet which I always cheese by jumping on his hidden tiki and just missiling everyone. It's not a horrible section, but it's easily the least fun of all of them. I love this level just because how out there it is. You can tell the developers only put this in so they can go crazy with their ideas, and I approve. More games need to have wacky dream levels. When I listed off the stages, I intentionally left one out. Kelp Forest. Kelp Forest is the one blemish on an otherwise amazing level selection. Okay, I love the episode this level originates from, but I don't love this level. Everyone says the reason this level sucks is because how dark it is, and Believe me, it is. However, I don't think that part is all that bad. I personally didn't have much trouble seeing things, though the level could have been a little bit brighter. Especially considering the one in the show wasn't even dark. My issue is the level itself. It has a couple of really annoying missions, and a slide that requires some pretty insane precision. The first not so great mission is the Tiki one. You have to bring the 3 stone tikis to these switches, and it requires some pretty dumb jumps. This one right here is the worst one. This looks like it's some kind of sequence break, but nope, this is how you do it. The mission still isn't too bad, at least not compared to this Barnacle Boy mission. You have to switch from SpongeBob to Patrick repeatedly to solve a bunch of puzzles, and it gets really tedious walking back to the bus station to change characters over and over. You unlock a shortcut halfway through, which does help a lot, but why did they just have multiple bus stops? That would have made this section so much more tolerable. Sand Mountain can also be pretty irritating depending on how you play it. If you're playing the game normally, it's actually a really fun level, but if you're going for 100%, it kinda sucks. Sand Mountain is still a mostly fun level, it's just that the socks are really annoying. The level is mostly just slides, and they have multiple pathways, meaning you're more than likely going to have to go on that slide multiple times to get all of the socks. Oh, and that Sandman sock is still a load of barnacles. While we're still talking about annoying missions, I have to talk about this Rube Goldberg machine in Mermalair. It's pretty much nothing but trial and error. It's easy when you know how to do it, but infuriating otherwise, and I always forget how to do it. So this mission is just a lot of dumb. Other than that, I think the levels are a ton of fun. Even the hub world is a lot of fun to explore. It has a lot more important areas from the show. You can even explore a lot of the inside of the buildings. SpongeBob, Squidward's, and Patrick's houses, Shady Shoals, the Chum Bucket, Sandy's Tree Dome, and the Krusty Krab are all explorable. The last two even have these short destroy all the robot minigames. Oh, SpongeBob? This is actually a reference to the episode Tea at the Tree Dome, Sandy's debut episode. This game actually has a ton of SpongeBob references. Pinky's Up, the invisible boatmobile, the nonsensical bathrooms in Rock Bottom, SpongeBob slides on his tongue, the hatch on the top of SpongeBob's roof from the Sunday episode, that one's really subtle. Hans from the Suds episode saves you every time you fall. The bus in Rock Bottom leaves immediately, just like in the Season 1 episode. Bubble Buddy's even the tutorial guy, and remember Bubble Buddy? That living bubble that robbed the Krusty Krab and watched a man drown to death? Yeah, that one. If you're a fan of the show, you're gonna be gushing pretty hard at every reference, and I didn't even name half of them. It's so clear the developers of this game, Heavy Iron, love the show, and there's no way they don't, and I'm so happy the game was developed by people who really understand the source material. I think the cutscene animation is pretty decent too. I'd say the animation is on par with most other games from this generation, though I'd say some of the in-game animations are a bit weird, like Mr. Krabs is always squinching, and I have no idea what's wrong with Mrs. Puff, but most other things are fine. The actual graphics I think are pretty good for the era. I really like the Mario Sunshine thing this game has going for it, as in you can see levels from other levels, like you can see Sand Mountain from Jellyfish Fields. I love this because it helps make this game's world feel like an actual world. I loved it in Sunshine and I loved it here too. All the character models look so much better than Revenge of the Flying Dutchman's did. SpongeBob is actually his proper shape now instead of that weird texture blovel thing the Revenge of the Flying Dutchman model had. I don't know what was up with that. And yeah, overall it looks like a GameCube, PS2, and Xbox game and not like a Dreamcast game. My only complaint is I wish they had a cel-shaded art style to match the show a bit better. Either way, it's better than whatever Dutchman did. Even the writing is pretty decent. It's definitely not as strong as the show, but it has its moments. I really like the tutorial on the health. Right before explaining what underwear does, it drops a safe on SpongeBob, demonstrating what taking damage does. The fact that you get a golden spatula from Squidward by jumping around like an idiot is pretty great. Oh, and this is just all around a great clip.
Don't ask questions you aren't prepared to handle the answer to!
Oh, and I guess they have porn in the retirement home? You? To go along with some pretty decent writing, we have some pretty decent voice acting. I say decent, but most of the voice acting is actually great. Most of the characters are voiced by the actual voice actors, and they do great. But notice how I said most? Well, unfortunately Clancy Brown does not voice Mr. Krabs and Ernest Borgnine does not voice Mermaid Man. The replacement, Joe White, sounds nothing like them. At least kind of like Mermaid Man's voice, Again, the voice sounds nothing like the one in the show, but I at least think it's a pretty funny sounding old man voice. Joe White's Mr. Krabs, on the other hand, is bad. It's just a really bad impression. He doesn't even pronounce spatula like spatula. Oh, and listen to his laugh. What is this? To me, this is nothing more than just imitation Krabs. I have no idea why they couldn't just get the correct voice actors for these characters. Why was Revenge of the Flying Dutchman the game with the right voice actors? Thankfully, they're the exception. Everyone else has their right voice actors and they all sound just fine. One small issue I've noticed in regards to the audio is the audio balancing. It's not great, it's mostly fun, but when you have electricity in the Merman Lair or the waterfalls and jellyfish fields. I don't know if it's just me, I can't hear anything. I also had this problem where sometimes the sound would pop every few seconds, but I think that's just my disc getting old, because I never had that happen before. A similar thing happened to me way back in my Spiral 1 recording, where the music just disappeared. I just forgot to bring that up in my video. Speaking of music, this game's soundtrack is actually really good. It all sounds like it could be from SpongeBob. They're all original songs, and there's actually variety and it fits the situations where it plays. The Hub Roll theme is probably the most SpongeBob sounding song in the game, and it's actually really catchy. Downtown Bikini Bottom is probably my favorite song in the game. And the Flying Dutchman's graveyard has no right to be this awesome. Pretty much every song in this game is great, and it pains me that I didn't even talk about Jellyfish Fields or Industrial Park at all, but I don't want to talk about the music for that long. You might have noticed I mentioned a location called Industrial Park, a level I haven't mentioned until now. That's because that's a boss stage. Yes, this game has more than one boss, unlike Revenge of the Flying Dutchman. There's a few stage bosses like King Jellyfish and Prong. Apparently he's one of Mermaid Man's greatest villains. Yeah, he's not from the show. I kinda wish the fight was with one of Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy's actual existing enemies like the Dirty Bubble or the Atomic Flounder. And oh my god, can you imagine a Man Ray boss fight? Anyway, we also have the Flying Dutchman, who has a far better fight than before, I might add. Though I still wouldn't call any stage boss great or anything. They're fine, but if you compare them to the main bosses, they're poop. There's 3 main bosses in this game. The first is Robo Sandy. It's in a boxing match hosted by King Neptune and narrated by the realistic fish head Anchorman. He narrates not just this battle, but every main battle. It's pretty great. Anyway, this fight is a bit different in each phase. One phase you're launching Robo Sandy's head, it's up so high it crashes up into the scoreboard as SpongeBob. The next you're tossing it as Patrick into the destroyed scoreboard. I think Robo Patrick fight is a bit better. Each phase involves hitting Patrick's back button, but you'll be doing it in different ways each time, all while avoiding the acidic ice cream. The final boss, on the other hand, is even better. The final battle is actually really great. As you probably guessed, it's against the robot SpongeBob, but before the fight, SpongeBob finds out all of this was actually Plankton's fault, not his, and it's revealed that RoboPlankton has taken over charge and is now using Robo SpongeBob as his last line of defense. So obviously you have to fight him. The first phase is all about using the bubble missiles to destroy all the green spots on him while avoiding the RoboPlankton's shots and Robo SpongeBob's various attacks. I love his attacks, they're all themed around SpongeBob himself, like he has his karate gloves which he'll use in a few different ways, and he even shouts the words, karate, while the words fly out towards you. It's pretty great. He even has the anchor arms after the first phase. He doesn't actually use them unfortunately, but he was originally. But in the final game it only serves one purpose in the cutscene. I still love it that it's there though. The second phase is mostly a platforming section that takes you inside Robo SpongeBob where RoboPlankton tries his absolute best to take you down. So you have to knock him out along with any other robot to destroy Robo SpongeBob from the inside. This section is actually hard. No checkpoints, no health restores, but there are plenty of pits to fall on and robots to drain your life away. I love this boss so much, it forces you to use everything you've learned throughout the game. Platforming, stomping, jump attacking, bubble bowling, and even using a lot of bubble missiles, all while this amazing song plays. Once that final missile destroys the last bit of Robo SpongeBob's brain, the game is done. A bunch of extra Roboplanktons come out of the duplication Tron, but each of their egos is too massive to do anything besides argue. Patrick steps on Plankton and they all go out for ice cream. If you 100% the game, you also get this cool little cutscene where all the characters from the game sing the SpongeBob theme while in the Krusty Krab, and Squidward is in agony. It's a nice little cutscene, but you shouldn't 100% the game for it. If you're gonna get everything, do it because you like the game. Oh, and if you pay the 40,000 shiny objects I mentioned way back in the video, you can unlock the movie theater with a bunch of really cool concept art for the game. Like, apparently there was gonna be a Robo Squidward. Thankfully, this isn't really a core part of the game, so you can just not unlock it, so you don't have to pay the 40,000 shiny objects, but technically, if you want to get everything, you need to have it. I only unlocked it in this playthrough for the sake of this video, but otherwise, I'd be content with just having it in my main file. If you're a SpongeBob fan that doesn't have this game, what are you doing? This game is really good. You need to have it. This is an absolute necessity if you're a SpongeBob fan. If you're not, I still say it's worth a go. You can get it for pretty cheap. I got my copy for about $10 on the GameCube a few years ago. I've seen you go for even cheaper on the PS2. The Xbox version is probably the best one overall, but it's also the most expensive. That one normally goes for around $20. However, either way, it still might be worth waiting because in March of 2018, THQ Nordic and Nickelodeon announced a partnership where they're remastering a bunch of old Nickelodeon games, and Battle Bikini Bottom would probably be the first thing they do because that's easily the most loved game by Nickelodeon. However, that was announced a while ago, almost a year ago actually, and we haven't heard anything about it. I think it's still happening because when people ask about it on Twitter, they usually respond with SpongeBob GIFs. So again, I think it's happening, but it's been a while. However, when I say remaster, I mean remaster, not a remake. So this actually seems like something a lot of people get wrong, but there's a very strong difference between the two. A remaster is something like the Sly Cooper Collection, an older game made in HD. That's it. Like, maybe the textures, the lighting is redone, but other than that, all the coding is the same. A remake is when they redo everything, like Spyro Reignited Trilogy. And I think what we're getting is a remaster, not a remake, because one, THQ Nordic is known for remastering, not remaking games, and two, I don't see Nickelodeon pouring that kind of money in a game that already exists. So, if you want a remake, unfortunately you're out of luck. Officially. There's actually a fan remake made in Unity being developed right now by a team called Slice Interactive. It's titled Battle Bikini Bottom HD Rehydrated, or just BfBBHDR. Okay, I call it a remake, but that's not entirely accurate. It's a reimagining, as in they're open to changing or even adding things. They're doing this for the sake of making the project more fun to make and allowing their creativity to shine. Some of the things they're doing is adding more areas of Jellyfish Fields and changing the caves to be much more nightmarish, though if that's too spooky for you, not only is that an option, but it's also off by default. And you'll just get the original caves instead if you choose to leave it off. The game will be accompanied by a remix soundtrack, which you're hearing right now in the background, and I'm really liking what's been released. But if you don't, that's fine, because just like Reignited Trilogy, you can switch to the original soundtrack. You can even switch to the original graphics, but I don't think I'd be doing that too much because this game is really gorgeous. Everything is so well done. I really love how Jellyfish Fields' time of day actually changes depending what part of the level you're in. There's even going to be online multiplayer, one mode where one player plays as SpongeBob and the other plays as whatever other character is in that level. And the other mode is where you can see other players throughout the world run around the same level as you, I guess like Mario 64 Online. I actually reached out to the main guy behind this game, No Life 4. I originally just wanted to know if I can use this game's art for this video's thumbnail. He said yes, which I really appreciate, and thanks for that. But he also wanted to talk on Discord. We talked and after he gave me some insight on the game's development, he said to me, if you're going to talk about it, you should probably play it. So he then gave me an exclusive early demo, which again I really appreciate. I can't show anything from it because it's really early, but what I can say is I think this game has a ton of promise. It looked graphically great, which I already talked about, and controls surprisingly well too, at least considering how early on it is. If you want to follow this project, they have a website, a YouTube channel, a Twitter, and even a Discord server. Links will be in the description. I highly recommend at least checking out the YouTube channel. That's where you can find all the remixes that have been released so far, and some really interesting videos like a dev vlog, which is where I got the B-roll for this game. If you want to play the demo yourself, you should join the Discord server because the team occasionally releases temporary online demos that are only available for a few hours. Overall, I think this project actually has a ton of potential, but it's really early development and it's made by fans, so don't expect it to release anytime soon. So I guess I'm finally done with Battle Bikini Bottom, and I probably will return to it at some point. There's that fan reimagining, and I would definitely cover that whenever it does come out, but again, if that does happen, it's not going to be for a while. If that THQ Nordic remaster is different enough and has enough new stuff, I might give it a short video. And there's also a Game Boy Advance version of this game that I actually don't have. I might cover that too. I don't know, but as of now, I'm done. And as for my next video, I'm probably gonna really regret this, but ever heard of Minor Ultra Adventures? If you haven't, you're in for a treat because that's my next video. See you guys then.